Good afternoon. And again, thanks to the Indian delegation who's here, and thanks to all of you for showing up. I think this is probably a new record for us putting together an event. I think most of you must have heard about this in the last 10 days. And what happened here, there's a little story behind the story, a little backstory. We have a long relationship, in particular, Josh Wolf, who's our head of operations, executive vice president, and myself, with a gentleman you'll meet later named Neeraj Roy. And Neeraj is a force of nature. And those of you who know Neeraj. And he called and said, look, I'm getting ready to put together what looks like a really high-level delegation of friends from India to come to Israel, be in the wake of the Modi visit. Can you help us with a few meetings and setting? And of course, we said, absolutely. We delighted. We said, it would be a shame not to have this group meet you, that to have this kind of firepower come to Israel and not get a chance to meet a broader section of the ecosystem and not just a few meetings. That would be what we call in Hebrew a fisfus, which even if you don't know what that means, it sounds like a miss, okay? And so we don't like to lefasfes, we don't like to miss, so we went ahead and organized this, and the results are in front of you. And we're very, very delighted about this. I'm going to run through just a few quick slides, a little bit about what's going on in the Israeli ecosystem for the benefit of the Indian delegation, and then a little bit about India-Israel relations for the benefit of all of us, and then talk about where this is going, and then turn it over to Neeraj. So let's see if we can get those slides up. Basically, you guys know that Israel today is really number 2 in the world in innovation. You don't need the World Economic Forum to look at it. You can just basically listen to Prime Minister Modi and others. Venture investment has been up and to the right in a dramatic way here in Israel in the last 3 years, gone from about $2 billion invested in startups now to almost $5 billion on an annual basis. This is now being deployed in somewhere between 700 and about 1,000 startups every year. It indeed is Startup Nation. This results in a disproportionate number of Israeli companies that are traded on New York stock exchanges, either NYSE or NASDAQ. It's a very strange picture to see Israel as part of the Big Four. But if you understand the power of Israeli innovation, then that makes more sense. There's also an ongoing and very, very much welcome multinational invasion of large corporations who are buying Israeli companies. And today it's become so intense that there are actually over 300 R&D centers for global giants. They usually come about as a result of serial acquisition, where people like Cisco have bought 13 companies here. Microsoft bought 2 just last month. And as a result of buying these companies, the multinationals come here, set up shop, and do so in a major way such that much of their IP or their value is created in Israel. Foremost among these companies is Intel, which today has about 11 or 12,000, I can't keep up, employees in the country. But the majority of Intel's chip design today is done in Israel. And recently, they just doubled down in a major way, spending $15 billion, or 15.3 to be precise, on the acquisition of an Israeli company called Mobileye, who leads in autonomous vehicles here in this country, sort of as a national mascot, if you will. We're very proud of this company. But what's more remarkable is that Intel just didn't buy Mobileye and ship it off to Silicon Valley or Oregon, where they have big facilities, and start running the business there. They basically made a decision to headquarter their autonomous vehicle activity here in Israel, in particular in Jerusalem. And they're now looking for 4,000 new engineers. So we've got to have some discussions seriously with our Indian partners, because we're short engineers. You guys produce about 300,000 a year just from IIT alone, okay, in the various branches. We need them, okay? And if our government's too brain dead to open up the visas here, then we're going to have to figure out a way around this. We've got to bring more people and to do this well together. The real news in the ecosystem is the fact that Israel and Asia are now developing relations. And it's not just Israel and India, it's a pan-Asia phenomena. And again, if you look at the past of our ecosystem, it was very, very focused and remains very focused on the United States. We have a special relationship with the US. Silicon Valley and Israel are connected with an umbilical. Europe is our largest trading partner because of its proximity and its wealth. But Asia is really where the future is. And if you look at what's going on, not just with India and Israel, but with China and Israel, by the way, I just got the data, Chinese tourists to Israel have increased in the last 4 years by a factor of 10. Don't take my word for it, just go on Rothschild Boulevard and you'll see these people, with a little flag, and it's literally gotten to the point where they're now accosting Israeli startup people, somebody who's taking a break from their startup, sitting on the park bench, just doing a little computing. Literally, people will stop them and say, do you have a startup that I can invest in? Okay, and this has gotten fairly aggressive. But it's not just China, it's Korea and Japan, and of course now, most importantly, India. This visit that we all relished here was just a game changer of the biggest order. I don't remember really a visit which was as long, as warm, as interesting, as well covered than the visit of your Prime Minister Modi and our Prime Minister Netanyahu. It wasn't just these pictures of the shaking of the hands or the walking on the beach or the Bollywood evening with Israelis of Indian descent and it was off the charts. And there is something magical about our relationship and where it's going. And it starts not just with the pure economics of you guys have got a huge, it was very funny. I think Prime Minister Netanyahu was speaking to the press. He said, together we represent 20% of mankind. Easy for him to say, okay, but it's not just that obvious economic interest, but there is a deep cultural resonance between our two civilizations, between our two cultures, between our two peoples. Really, if you ask Israelis, what is their favorite country in the world, okay, especially to hang out and to have fun, I dare say that India is going to win. Thailand might give you a very, very good run for your money. Okay, I'm headed there in a couple of days for vacation. But the reality is that Israelis love India. They love everything about India. And that makes us a little bit different than many other ecosystems. For example, Israelis like spicy food, right? We're the only, foreigners who, when they go to an Indian restaurant, they say, do you want spicy? More spicy, okay? That's who we are. We have a huge tolerance for what we call balagan, which is chaos, okay? Let's face it, some people who come from the West to India are a little put off by some of the infrastructure and the ways of the... We feel right at home. This is exactly the way we roll. We can handle this. And it turns out that, so many of our young people show up there. There's this, and I've never really been able to actually figure out whether this is a true story or just sort of urban legend. But the story is that there was an Israeli foreign minister sitting with his Indian counterpart in India, and it was a little while ago, and the Indian asked him, so how many people live in your country? And he said at that point, about 8 million. He goes, no, I didn't ask how many backpackers were in India each summer, how many people. But the reality is that for Israelis who are working in a startup, their visit to India to do business with you is not their first visit. They've been there before. They know the culture. And this is a real advantage. Now, what we have to do is reverse it. We have to find a way to bring not just 20 CEOs, but 20,000 Indian business people and Indian engineers here. Because ultimately, this business tie is going to be built between people. And the only way you build these kinds of ties is that face-to-face interaction. Now, the first set of business ties have obviously been on defense. We know that Israel is now, I think, India's third largest defense supplier after the United States and Russia. And we are, by the way, one of the top 5 defense suppliers in the world. This shows no signs of abatement. It's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But what we're talking about today is the commercial ties between Israel and India, which are also going through the roof. This is 20 times growth at the moment, and again, we haven't even really got started in terms of where this is going to go. The opportunities are enormous, and this is just a very short list. I could have made it much bigger, but they tell you to keep your slides simple. But if you look at agriculture, and you look at health, and you look at the cybersecurity area, and you look at cloud and robotics, we have a huge way and a wave of companies that we can work on, and advertising, and media, and everything having to do with digital life in general. A little bit about OurCrowd, a shameless promotion, so I got just a few seconds left. We're a crowdfunding platform that is truly global. We've now amassed about 20,000 investors worldwide. We're closing in on about $500 million of assets under management. We've backed 120 companies, and we've made our first 2 investments in India so far, and we look for more. So please, the members of the delegation, help us find more companies in India that we can invest in. But we not only want to invest dollars into Indian startups, we want to help our cadre of startups do good business in India. And it's that ability to build a global network that really, I think, reflects who we are. The people you see in the audience, the people who are outside. We urge you, by the way, to come back to our global summit, which will be here on February 1st, not in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem. We're expecting 10,000 people. But the reality is that we are very committed at OurCrowd to the Indian business and to making this promise of the Modi-Netanyahu visit come true. And in the last couple of weeks, we've been very active, busy signing deals. And it's not just signing deals and sending out press notices, but it's actually getting business done. So first off, we got a deal done with Reliance Industries, which is the largest industrial activity in India, to build together an incubator in Jerusalem. We're partnered also with Motorola and with the Hebrew University. This is a picture of the launch, just happened a couple of weeks ago. We're very excited. Mr. Ambani has met with us already himself, and we're really ready to move forward here. In addition to that, so we get both sides of the family covered, that's a joke. The Indians laugh. The Israelis were totally clueless. Okay, the Ambanis are the big family in India, and there are 2 wings of the family. One does the industry, one does the capital. And in any event, Anil Ambani and Reliance Capital has signed a big deal with us relative to distribution of our financial products in the Indian market, and we've already seen our first investments now coming as a result of this. This is great. I want to especially thank Josh Wolf and Elias Gosalkar, our new Indian recruit, who's joined us, who've made this possible. And this shows huge promise for us as a platform for distribution. And then finally, we've made an alliance, that's not finally, there's one more coming, with Let's Venture, which is India's largest equity crowdfunding platform, taking a lot of startups and putting them together. We're going to be listing our startups with them, bringing their startups onto the OurCrowd platform. We're very, very excited about Shanti and her team and doing all kinds of things with them. We've now done a deal with Yes Bank, who've got a financial fintech incubator. We haven't even got started, okay? And we are taking this very seriously. We're traveling back and forth. Andy, the president of OurCrowd, was in Delhi opening up our first event there. Together we were in Mumbai. I was at a wonderful wedding just recently in Bangalore, my first Indian wedding, and we are going to be going back and forth to this ecosystem. So just with a couple of examples of companies that are doing well already in India, and then I'm going to turn it over to the following speakers. Zebra Medical Vision just, I think, 2 weeks ago announced a partnership with Teleradiology, the largest teleradiology company in India, to launch their automated medical imaging machine learning platform. They basically can take a medical image, a CT, MRI, X-ray, and tell you what you've got. And for India, this is a huge breakthrough, and we're expecting a lot of business with this in the Indian healthcare environment. Site Diagnostics, who's here today. Asaf, I saw you earlier. Raise your hand. Over there. Okay. talk to this gentleman. They're selling in India. They have a partnership with Becton Dickinson. They have the world's leading malaria testing kit. They're now working on a whole new kind of blood testing platform, and they're very committed to their Indian partnership. If you look at Zoomcar, this is one of our Indian investments. They are the world's, I think, most innovative rental car or self-driving company. They don't own a fleet. They basically enable people to buy their car with their help, getting loans from a bank, and then the individuals give the car back to the platform and they rent them to the rest of us. And this company is just on a tear. We're co-invested there with Sequoia Capital. Ford Motor Company led the last round. And one of the great little side notes is they came to our summit here in Jerusalem 2 years ago, and we introduced them to a small company called Mobileye. And they deployed the Mobileye technology, becoming the first rental car company in the world to have it on all of their cars. The collision avoidance system in the Zoom car, they've reduced accidents by 85%. Okay, 85%. And that's really about as good as it gets. And finally, Emprest, which is the company which has made the software which powers Israel's Iron Dome anti-missile system. This hasn't been announced yet formally, but they're working with one of your very, very large mobile carriers to do essentially asset management of tens of thousands of next generation base stations, and this is off the charts. We'll be making more noise about that, but Emprest is very, very committed to their partnership with India. So with those comments, I'm going to leave it here, and now it's my great pleasure to introduce Neeraj Roy. And Neeraj, again, other than being a force of nature, is someone I met in my last incarnation as a mobile entertainment entrepreneur. I actually had a company that was doing video ringtones, would you believe? And if you do video ringtones, you've got to think about India. And you've got to think about Neeraj's company, which is Hungama. Hungama has been described as the Disney of India, but it's really like Disney and about 10 different record labels and 10 different media companies all rolled into one digital wonderful package. Neeraj runs the largest digital media company in South Asia. It's really a huge force of nature. He was voted among the 10 top Moby thinkers and the 50 most influential people in mobile entertainment globally. He's a senior vice president of the Indian Advertising Association. We're delighted to have Neeraj and his platform. Neeraj Roy, please.